For as long as human beings have walked the earth, headaches have followed us. They are among the oldest and most universal afflictions, the kind of pain that transcends culture, language, and geography. Imagine the lives of people thousands of years ago. The farmers tilling the soil under a blazing sun, the hunters straining their eyes in the forest shadows, the artisans working by dim torchlight to carve stone or shape metal. Their bodies, like ours, grew tired, and their heads, like ours, sometimes throbbed with pressure and pain. But in a world without pharmacies, without aspirin or paracetamol, how did they cope? What could they do when their vision blurred, when their temples throbbed, when their thoughts were clouded by that familiar, relentless ache? The answer is both fascinating and unsettling. Across civilizations, from the banks of the Nile to the courts of medieval Europe, people devised cures that were as strange as they were imaginative. To them, a headache was rarely just a physical problem. It was something spiritual, something cosmic, or even something demonic. And so, the remedies they pursued stretched far beyond the realm of logic, into rituals, charms, incantations, and sometimes dangerous experiments. These bizarre cures are windows into the way people once understood the human body and the mysteries of illness. Each one tells us a story about fear, about hope, and about the lengths to which people would go to rid themselves of pain. Some of these treatments used plants and herbs that still have real medicinal qualities, even if their application was strange. Others were symbolic, drawing on religious rituals or magical thinking. And then there were practices that seem shocking to us today, involving fire, blood, or even the bone of the skull itself. Yet there is also something strangely comforting in this history. Because when we look back at the strangest cures for headaches, we are reminded that people of every age and every culture shared something deeply human with us: the desire for relief, the yearning for peace, the hope of quieting the mind. In that way, their strangeness is also our story. So let us begin this journey. We will move slowly and calmly through time, exploring different corners of history, where headaches were seen not as minor nuisances, but as powerful forces demanding equally powerful cures. Some of these cures may make you laugh, others may make you shudder, but all of them reveal how humans, long before modern science, wrestled with pain and tried in their own ways to set themselves free. Section 1. Ancient Egypt. Demons in the Skull. In the golden sands of ancient Egypt, life was lived under the watchful eyes of gods and spirits. Illness was rarely seen as something natural. It was believed to be the work of forces that lived beyond human sight. And headaches, especially the kind that came suddenly or lingered without relief, were often blamed on malevolent spirits that had entered the body. To cure such an ailment, the Egyptians turned to their priests and healers, who combined medicine with magic in ways that seem bizarre to us today. One of the most curious cures involved writing spells on a piece of papyrus, then dissolving the ink into water and drinking it. The idea was that the sacred words would travel inside the body, pushing the demon or spirit out of the head. It was not the chemical makeup of the ink that mattered, but the power of the words themselves. Words that once swallowed could become medicine. Another remedy was far more physical. The Egyptians believed that certain plants held divine power, and they were used in poultices placed on the temples or the back of the neck. For headaches, they sometimes crushed onions or garlic, mixed them with beer, and applied the mixture directly to the skin. The strong fumes, they thought, could chase the demon out of the skull. Other times, the patient would be told to inhale the smoke of burning herbs, letting the spirit escape with each breath of the pungent fumes. But perhaps the strangest practice of all involved animal parts. Some cures recommended placing a freshly cut fish on the head, or tying a piece of raw meat against the forehead with cloth. These remedies, unpleasant as they sound, were rooted in the belief that the spirit causing the headache might be tricked or lured into the flesh of the animal, leaving the sufferer free of pain. The Egyptians also connected headaches with the gods themselves. Certain deities, such as Sekhmet, the fierce lion-headed goddess, were believed to cause illness when angered. Appeasing her with offerings, prayers, or amulets was another pathway to relief. Amulets, often shaped like the Eye of Horus, were worn around the neck or tied to the head, their protective power believed to shield the wearer from the invisible arrows of pain. When we look at these cures today, they seem strange, even grotesque, yet they remind us that for the Egyptians, medicine and religion were inseparable. A headache was not just an ache, it was a spiritual event, an invasion by unseen forces, a message from the gods. And in that world, the cure could never be just physical. It had to be magical, symbolic, something that addressed the spirit as much as the body. And perhaps, in their own way, these cures did work. Not because the raw fish or garlic paste physically drove out demons, but because belief itself has power. The act of ritual. The comfort of a healer's voice. The certainty that the gods were listening. These things may have eased the pain, just as surely as any medicine. Section 2. Ancient Greece and Rome. Balance, blood, and the wrath of the gods. If Egypt saw headaches as the work of spirits, then Greece and Rome transformed them into something even more complicated, a problem of balance. For the philosophers and physicians of the classical world, health was built upon the mysterious theory of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. When these vital fluids were in harmony, the body flourished. But when one of them tipped out of balance, illness, weakness, or pain appeared. And headaches, those sudden storms inside the skull, were thought to be one of the most obvious signs that the humors had been disturbed. The remedies, therefore, often aimed at restoring balance. Sometimes this meant adding to the body through food, drink, or medicine. Other times it meant taking away by draining or purging what was thought to be in excess. It was a theory both elegant and terrifying in practice. One of the most striking cures for headaches in the Greek world was bloodletting. If a patient complained of throbbing temples or pressure behind the eyes, a physician might slice open a vein in the arm or behind the ears, allowing blood to flow freely into a bowl. The logic was that the blood had gathered in the head, causing heaviness and pain, and by letting some of it escape, the pressure would be relieved. It was a brutal cure, and yet it remained popular for centuries. In Rome, physicians refined the practice further, sometimes using leeches placed strategically on the forehead or scalp to draw out the excess humor with quiet efficiency. Other treatments were gentler, but equally strange. Greek physicians recommended binding herbs around the head to cool the overactive blood. One recipe involved using crushed roses mixed with vinegar, which was then wrapped in a cloth and tied tightly across the forehead. The sweet fragrance of roses, combined with the sharp sting of vinegar, was believed to calm the heated blood and restore harmony. Patients would sit in shaded courtyards, the cloth tied firmly around their heads, waiting for the mixture to chase away the pain. Wine also played a curious role in headache cures. While drinking too much wine was known to cause headaches, something even the ancients joked about, small measured doses of diluted wine were thought to soothe them. Hippocrates himself advised that certain headaches could be eased by sipping wine infused with herbs like rosemary or laurel. The ritual of preparation, the warming fragrance, and the slow sipping were part of the cure, merging pleasure with medicine. But the Greeks and Romans did not rely on humors alone. Like the Egyptians, they also turned to the gods. A severe or sudden headache might be seen as punishment from Apollo, the god of healing and disease, or from Asclepius, whose temples dotted the Greek world. People suffering from headaches sometimes visited these sacred healing centers, known as Asclepia, where they would sleep overnight in the temple, hoping to be healed through dreams sent by the god. These dream cures were deeply symbolic. A patient might dream of a snake licking their forehead, or of a healer performing surgery in the dream world, and upon waking, they would be declared cured. Romans, with their love of amulets and charms, went even further. Some wore tiny carvings of ivory or bronze, shaped like miniature heads or skulls, tied to cords around their necks or foreheads. These objects were not just decorative, but protective, a physical barrier against the invisible forces that might trigger pain. Others whispered spells while rubbing their temples with oils infused with saffron or myrrh, believing the words themselves had the power to draw the pain out, as if headaches were a kind of spirit that could be persuaded to leave. And then there were cures that tested the limits of both faith and endurance. One Roman account describes a cure in which a live torpedo fish, an electric ray capable of delivering painful shocks, was placed against the head of the sufferer. The jolt, unpleasant as it was said to reset the humors and drive out the headache. To us, this sounds more like torture than healing. But to the Romans, it may have been seen as an effective, if extreme, remedy. Interestingly, modern science has confirmed that electric shocks can sometimes relieve certain types of nerve pain. Though hardly in the way ancient people imagined. The world of Greece and Rome also blended medicine with philosophy. Stoic thinkers often reminded people that pain was not purely physical, but a test of the soul. To endure a headache calmly was to prove one's strength of character. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, wrote about headaches as trials sent by fate. Lessons in patience and resilience. For some, this mindset may have acted as its own kind of cure, soothing the spirit even if the body still ached. What fascinates us about these cures is the range of responses they represent. There were herbal remedies, ritual cures, surgical interventions, and spiritual practices, all mingling together in a society that valued both reason and faith. A Greek patient might try bloodletting 1 week, wine the next, and an offering to Apollo the week after. A Roman might wear an amulet, whisper a spell, and then sit with a torpedo fish on their forehead, all in the same desperate search for relief. These cures may strike us today as bizarre, but they were deeply logical within their own worlds. To a Greek physician, the headache was an imbalance of humors. To a Roman priest, it was the wrath of the gods. To treat it, therefore, meant addressing both the body and the spirit, the physical and the divine. And in this, perhaps, they were not so far from us after all. For even today, when modern medicine offers us pills and therapies, many people still turn to rituals, to meditation, to charms, and to belief. The pain of a headache is universal, and so too is the longing to be free of it. no matter how strange the path we take to find relief. Section 3. Medieval Europe. Charms, blood, and holy water. The medieval world was one of deep contrasts. Soaring cathedrals and bustling markets stood alongside dark forests, superstition, and the ever-present shadow of illness. In this world, medicine was less a science and more a fragile weaving of folk wisdom, spiritual belief, and the limited knowledge inherited from Greece and Rome. Headaches, those stubborn, invisible torments, were seen not merely as physical afflictions, but as signs of spiritual imbalance, divine punishment, or even demonic influence. The cures that emerged were therefore as much about faith and ritual as they were about herbs and remedies. One of the most widespread medieval cures for headaches was bloodletting, a practice inherited from the ancient theory of humors. Physicians trained in monastic schools believed that headaches were often caused by an overabundance of blood rising to the head. To release this pressure, they prescribed opening veins in the arms, legs, or even the scalp itself. The patient would sit in a wooden chair, a basin placed beneath their arm, as a thin blade sliced the skin and warm blood trickled out. Though gruesome to imagine, many people swore by it, claiming relief once the bad blood had been drawn away. Yet the practice could be refined into stranger forms. In some accounts, leeches were applied directly to the temples or behind the ears, their tiny mouths pulling blood from the skin while the patient waited in stillness. For some sufferers, the rhythmic tug of the leeches was strangely soothing, a quiet distraction from the pounding inside the skull. To the medieval mind, the leech was not a parasite, but a helper, sent by nature itself to restore balance. Alongside these physical treatments, the medieval imagination created a rich tapestry of charms and amulets designed to protect against headaches. In an age where illness was often attributed to invisible spirits or curses, objects worn close to the body were thought to shield the sufferer. Small pieces of parchment, inscribed with verses from the Bible, were folded carefully and tied around the forehead with a strip of linen. Some people wore beads carved from jet or amber, believed to absorb the pain and hold it captive within their smooth surfaces. Others carried fragments of saints' bones or drops of holy water, sealed in tiny vials, convinced that these sacred relics carried divine power to banish suffering. The Church itself played a central role in headache cures. Pilgrims traveled long distances to shrines, seeking relief from their pain. At the shrine of St. Thomas Becket in Canterbury, sufferers prayed at the saint's tomb, sometimes touching their foreheads to the cold stone in hopes of healing. Holy water sprinkled on the brow was another common cure, believed to cleanse both body and soul. For the faithful, these remedies were not only physical, but deeply comforting, affirming their connection to the divine in a world full of uncertainty. Herbal medicine also flourished during the Middle Ages, preserved by monks who carefully tended gardens within monastery walls. Among their cures for headaches was feverfew, a plant still recognized today for its ability to ease migraines. Patients might chew the leaves directly, their bitter taste sharp on the tongue, or brew them into a warm tea. Other herbs like lavender, sage, and peppermint were steeped into infusions, their fragrant steam inhaled by sufferers as they sat in quiet chambers lit by flickering candles. These remedies, though humble, offered a sensory comfort. The aroma, the warmth of the cup in hand, the ritual of preparation, all combined to soothe both body and spirit. But the medieval imagination also produced remedies that seem truly bizarre to us today. One curious cure involved splitting open a freshly killed pigeon and placing it, still warm, upon the patient's head. The heat of the animal was thought to draw out the pain, transferring it from the human body into the lifeless bird. Another recipe advised boiling a mixture of powdered emerald and wine, then drinking it slowly. To the medieval mind, precious stones held natural powers, and emeralds in particular were thought to strengthen vision and relieve head pains. Superstition often blended seamlessly with medicine. In rural villages, cunning folk, healers who relied on charms and folk magic, offered remedies involving whispered incantations and ritual gestures. One such practice required tying a strip of red cloth tightly around the head while chanting the Lord's Prayer backwards. Another cure suggested walking barefoot around a churchyard 3 times, touching the ground with one's forehead each time, before lying flat on the grass and waiting for the pain to fade. Whether these worked in a medical sense or not, the rituals themselves provided structure, a sense of control in the face of relentless pain. Even astrology entered into the mix. Physicians sometimes consulted the stars before recommending treatments, believing that headaches could be linked to the influence of certain planets. Saturn, with its cold, heavy nature, was often blamed for migraines, while the fiery influence of Mars was thought to produce sharp, stabbing pains. A patient's horoscope might determine whether they were prescribed herbs, bloodletting, or a pilgrimage. To modern eyes, this seems fanciful, but for medieval Europeans, the heavens and the body were intimately connected, woven together in a grand cosmic design. Perhaps most telling of all, headaches in the Middle Ages were often moralized. A sudden pain might be interpreted as a sign of sin, or a punishment for prideful thoughts. Monks wrote of headaches as reminders of humility, afflictions meant to turn the mind back toward God. In this way, even suffering itself became part of spiritual life, a test of faith to be endured with patience and prayer. When we look back on these cures, some strike us as gruesome, others as poetic, and still others as oddly familiar. The herbs, the quiet rituals, the gentle fragrance of lavender tea, these echo down to us as things we might still use today, albeit with more scientific grounding. The charms, the pigeons, the emeralds. Those remind us how deeply human beings have always longed for meaning in their suffering, willing to try anything if it might bring relief. And perhaps that is the most calming realization of all. Headaches in medieval Europe were not just medical problems. They were threads in the great tapestry of life, interwoven with faith, fear, and the search for hope. To sit in a candlelit chamber, sipping warm herbal tea while listening to the murmur of prayers, was as much a cure for the soul as it was for the pain in the head. And that, more than anything, reminds us that healing has always been about more than medicine alone. Section 4. Renaissance and Early Modern Cures, Between Science and Superstition. The Renaissance is often celebrated as the dawn of reason, a time of art, discovery, and the rebirth of classical learning. Yet for those suffering from headaches, the path to relief was far from straightforward. While physicians of the time made great strides in anatomy and medicine, their treatments remained entangled with centuries-old traditions, superstitions, and a fascination with the mystical. The result was a curious blend of genuine progress and bizarre remedies that reflect both the ingenuity and the desperation of the human spirit. One of the more striking shifts of the Renaissance was the growing emphasis on observation and experiment. Physicians began to challenge medieval reliance on astrology and charms, seeking instead to understand the body as a system of organs, fluids, and functions. Still, the theory of humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, remained the cornerstone of medical thought. Headaches were explained as imbalances, and treatments sought to correct those imbalances, often through purging, vomiting, or continued reliance on bloodletting. But unlike in the medieval era, Renaissance bloodletting sometimes grew into elaborate procedures. Specialized instruments called phlemes and ornate cups were developed for the process, and wealthy patients might request the use of leeches imported from distant lands. The sight of physicians in their long robes and masks, applying small, wriggling leeches to a nobleman's temples, was considered the height of medical care. To us, it seems strange and unsettling, but at the time, it was a trusted and even fashionable therapy. Alongside these procedures, Renaissance thinkers began experimenting with new chemical remedies. The rise of alchemy, not yet separated from medicine, introduced substances like mercury, antimony, and sulfur into cures for headaches. Paracelsus, a controversial Swiss physician and alchemist, championed the use of chemicals as medicines, arguing that natural elements could balance the body just as effectively as herbs. His followers prescribed tinctures of opium, solutions of lead, and even powdered precious stones to those tormented by migraines. A sip of wine infused with ground pearl or emerald might be recommended, not only for its supposed curative power, but also as a mark of status. Yet herbs did not disappear. On the contrary, the Renaissance brought a renewed interest in botany. Physicians and apothecaries carefully catalogued plants, publishing beautifully illustrated herbals filled with detailed drawings and descriptions. For headaches, remedies included rosemary, believed to strengthen the memory, willow bark, which we now know contains salicin, a precursor to aspirin, and marjoram, often crushed into oils for soothing balms. Patients might inhale the steam of boiled herbs, massage their temples with scented ointments, or even wear wreaths of fresh rosemary or lavender around their heads. The combination of fragrance, ritual, and hope offered a comforting reprieve. Of course, not all cures were so gentle. One striking remedy involved burning dried herbs and animal parts, then inhaling the smoke directly. Physicians suggested that the pungent fumes could drive out the vapors believed to cause headaches. In some recipes, powdered deer antler or even dried earthworms were added to the mixture, producing a smell both acrid and unforgettable. Patients would sit with cloths draped over their heads, eyes watering, waiting for the smoke to draw out their pain. Another curious practice involved clysters or enemas. Physicians believed that flushing the bowels could relieve pressure in the head, and elaborate recipes were devised that included chamomile, fennel, and even butter. Though it might sound bizarre to us, these treatments were based on the humoral theory's insistence that the entire body was connected. Cleansing one part might bring relief to another. The Renaissance was also a time of spiritual tension, and many headache cures reflected the blending of religious devotion with natural remedies. Amulets inscribed with Latin prayers were still worn, particularly by those who believed headaches were caused by evil spirits. Pilgrimages to healing springs grew popular, with sufferers drinking or bathing in mineral waters thought to cleanse both the body and soul. In some towns, water blessed by a priest was mixed with powdered herbs, then applied directly to the forehead in elaborate rituals that blurred the line between medicine and sacrament. Astrology, though increasingly questioned, remained influential. Learned physicians might still cast a horoscope before prescribing treatment, believing the alignment of planets influenced not only the illness, but also the cure. If the moon was waning, bloodletting might be postponed. If Mars was strong, herbal remedies might be favored. Even as science gained ground, the heavens still held sway over human health. Among the more peculiar cures were those involving music and sound. Inspired by ancient Greek theories, some Renaissance physicians suggested that certain melodies could soothe the spirits and relieve pain. Lutes, flutes, and small harps were played softly in chambers scented with herbs, creating an atmosphere of calm. For wealthy patients, music therapy was a fashionable addition to treatment, blending art, science, and comfort in ways that feel surprisingly modern. And yet, there were darker practices as well. In rural areas, folk healers sometimes recommended placing a dead mole or mouse on the head, the belief being that the animal's lifelessness would draw away the pain. Others prescribed binding the skull tightly with cloth soaked in vinegar or urine, substances thought to balance the body's humors. To those desperate for relief, even these unsettling remedies offered a sliver of hope. Perhaps the most striking aspect of Renaissance headache cures is this duality: the careful study of plants, minerals, and anatomy, alongside the persistence of charms, smoke, and astrology. It was a time of transition, a bridge between superstition and science. To sit in a Renaissance chamber, breathing in the scent of rosemary, listening to the soft pluck of a lute, while a physician measured out powders in a gilded vial, must have felt like being poised on the edge of two worlds, one ancient and mystical, the other new and rational. In the end, the Renaissance reminds us that healing is rarely a simple path. It is woven from many threads: knowledge and belief, ritual and hope, science and spirit. And for those plagued by headaches, the cures of the time, whether through the soothing fragrance of lavender, the sharp sting of bloodletting, or the calm of sacred music, were as much about restoring harmony to the mind as they were about easing the pain in the body. Section 5. Enlightenment Oddities, Electricity, Tobacco Smoke, and the Birth of Scientific Headache Cures. By the 18th century, the world was changing in ways that people of earlier centuries could hardly imagine. Printing presses spread ideas at incredible speed. Trade routes brought strange plants and remedies from across the globe, and a growing fascination with science meant that rational explanations often replaced purely mystical ones. And yet, when it came to something as ordinary and irritating as a headache, the cures people tried were anything but ordinary. The Enlightenment, for all its elegance and reason, produced remedies that now sound wonderfully bizarre, a strange blend of superstition, early science, and experimentation gone wild. One of the strangest cures was the use of electricity. The discovery of electricity during the 1700s was considered almost magical. For many, the invisible force was thought to be a gift from nature, something that could cure, restore, and energize the human body. Doctors and curious amateurs alike began experimenting with electrotherapy. If you had a headache, one recommendation was to place a small static electricity machine near your head and let it discharge sparks across your scalp. Some physicians swore that the shocks drew out the pain, while others believed that headaches came from blocked energy, which could be freed with jolts of lightning-like power. Imagine sitting stiffly in a wooden chair, your powdered wig slightly askew, as a scientist in silk breeches turned a crackling generator and shot tiny sparks into your temples. This was considered cutting-edge medicine. But if electricity sounds eccentric, it pales beside another Enlightenment favorite: tobacco smoke. Tobacco had arrived in Europe from the Americas in the 16th century, but by the 18th, it was hailed as almost a miracle plant. Doctors claimed it stimulated the body, cleansed the humors, and awakened the mind. For headaches, the recommendation could be as simple as smoking a pipe of strong tobacco, letting the nicotine numb the nerves and sharpen focus. But some cures went further. Physicians advised blowing tobacco smoke directly into the ear of the headache sufferer, reasoning that the smoke would rise up and clear the head. There are even reports of doctors using smoke enemas, not specifically for headaches, but sometimes prescribed when the pain was linked to sluggish digestion. Today, such practices sound shocking, but in their time, they were the height of fashionable medicine, blending ritual with experimentation. Another widely promoted cure was snuff, powdered tobacco taken through the nose. Aristocrats carried tiny ornate boxes filled with finely ground tobacco, and sniffing it was both a social habit and a supposed remedy for ailments. For headaches, the sharp rush of snuff was said to awaken the brain and clear the senses. Some snuff blends even contained extra ingredients, like ground herbs, camphor, or even powdered seashells, designed to give the sufferer a greater sense of relief. The snuff taker would sneeze violently, and with that sneeze, doctors believed the headache might also be expelled. Of course, the Enlightenment also revived some older remedies but dressed them in new scientific clothing. Bloodletting, which had been around for centuries, continued to be popular, but now it was often explained in terms of circulation rather than humors. Doctors argued that removing blood from a vein in the arm or temple would balance the nervous system and relieve head pain. Some even applied leeches directly to the temples, letting them slowly drain the blood near the site of pain. To us it may sound grisly, but to them it was precise and logical, a blend of anatomy and natural philosophy. Another curious cure came from the expanding knowledge of plants. Botanists cataloged herbs from Asia, Africa, and the Americas, and many were tested against headaches. Willow bark, which we now know contains salicylic acid, the chemical ancestor of aspirin, was often brewed into tea. But other remedies were stranger. Powdered coral mixed with honey, or even ground pearls dissolved in vinegar, were recommended for severe migraines. Because pearls and coral were rare and expensive, these treatments were reserved for the wealthy. Imagine sipping a sparkling tonic of dissolved jewels, believing that the shimmering liquid would calm the storm in your head. At the same time, there was a growing fascination with the nervous system. The 18th century was the age when physicians began to realize that the brain and nerves controlled much of human experience. But with this discovery came unusual theories. Some doctors claimed that headaches were caused by overheated nerves and prescribed cooling treatments, pressing cold metal plates against the forehead, or wrapping the head in cloth soaked with vinegar and rosewater. Others believed the opposite, that nerves needed stimulation. These physicians recommended drinking strong coffee or even hot chocolate, substances that had only recently entered European diets. Coffee houses became places not only of debate and conversation, but also of therapy, where men and women sipped bitter brews in hopes of driving away the pounding in their temples. And then there were the truly eccentric ideas. In France, some physicians suggested wearing a raw-cut potato around the neck, tied with a ribbon so that it pressed against the skin. Potatoes, new arrivals from the New World, were believed to draw out illness and absorb pain. In Germany, some households kept jars of vinegar infused with horsehair, rubbing the pungent mixture onto the forehead during attacks. In Britain, there was even a short-lived craze for headache magnets. small magnetic stones worn in a band across the forehead, said to balance the body's invisible forces. What ties all these strange remedies together is the spirit of curiosity and experimentation. Unlike earlier centuries, where cures were rooted in magic or faith, Enlightenment medicine wanted to appear logical, even if the practices themselves still sound odd to us. Electricity, tobacco, magnets, jewels, and even potatoes all carried the same promise: relief from a pain that seemed as old as humanity itself. And while many of these cures seem peculiar, one cannot help but admire the optimism of the age. The Enlightenment was a time when people believed they could harness the forces of nature, whether sparks of lightning, exotic plants, or glittering stones, to improve their lives. Even if these remedies did not always work, they show us something universal: the lengths to which people will go, in any era, to escape the simple, relentless pain of a headache. Section 6. Industrial Age Remedies, Cocaine, Vibrations, and Mechanical Marvels. As the 19th century unfolded, the world experienced a dizzying pace of change. Steam engines roared, factories rose against the skyline, and medicine itself began to shift into something resembling modern science. People lived longer, traveled further, and consumed goods that their ancestors could hardly imagine. Yet despite all the marvels of industry and innovation, one very ancient problem remained: the headache. And just as in earlier centuries, the cures people invented were often as bizarre as they were ambitious, shaped by the intoxicating spirit of discovery that defined the age. One of the most startling developments was the arrival of cocaine as a supposed medical miracle. Discovered in coca leaves from South America and isolated in the mid-1800s, cocaine was quickly hailed as a wonder drug. Doctors praised it as a stimulant for the weary, a tonic for the depressed, and, yes, a cure for headaches. Physicians advised patients to drink wine infused with coca extract or even to take powdered cocaine directly. A French chemist produced a famous beverage called vin mariani, a wine fortified with coca leaves, which became popular across Europe. Not only was it refreshing, but it was marketed as a cure for migraines, neuralgia, and general exhaustion. Even Pope Leo XIII reportedly endorsed it, carrying a personal flask. Imagine sipping a ruby-red glass of coca wine in a candlelit parlor, believing it to banish pain, when in truth it was a potent stimulant with addictive power. If cocaine was one astonishing cure, another came in the form of chloroform and ether. These chemicals, celebrated for their role in surgical anesthesia, were also adopted by headache sufferers who sought relief from severe migraines. In some cases, people were advised to inhale small amounts of chloroform vapors, producing a brief lightheadedness and a numbing effect. Others dabbed ether on cloths and pressed them gently to the temples. The experience was soothing at first, but as we know today, it carried enormous risks. Yet in the 19th century, these substances were considered modern, scientific, and almost miraculous. Meanwhile, the era's fascination with machines gave rise to an entirely new kind of headache remedy: mechanical devices designed to vibrate or massage the head. Inventors believed that headaches were caused by poor circulation, nerve tension, or congestion of blood in the brain. To fix this, they built contraptions that rattled, shook, or squeezed the skull. Some were hand-cranked helmets lined with tiny hammers that tapped rhythmically against the scalp. Others were electrical machines that sent vibrations through the temples, promising to stimulate nerve pathways and clear the mind. To a modern observer, these devices look almost like instruments of torture, but to Victorians, they embodied progress. the harnessing of machinery for human well-being. Alongside machines, there was an obsession with electricity that continued from the Enlightenment. By the late 1800s, electric headache belts and shock helmets were being advertised in newspapers and catalogs. These wearable devices delivered small jolts of current across the skull, promising instant relief. Some were sold for home use, marketed to respectable families as both medical and modern. The language of the advertisements often borrowed from science, speaking of nervous energy and electrical balance, but behind the technical words lay the same old dream, a quick cure for the ever-present headache. The 19th century also brought an explosion of patent medicines, bottled tonics, pills, and powders that claimed to cure nearly everything, headaches included. These concoctions often contained strong ingredients, opium, morphine, alcohol, or caffeine in high doses. Many were sold under names like headache powders or neuralgia cure. Women, in particular, were frequent customers since migraines and nervous headaches were commonly diagnosed as female complaints. Ads depicted pale women transformed into radiant figures after a dose of medicine, their pain banished by a mysterious formula. Of course, most of these cures were addictive or dangerous, but in their time, they were embraced with faith and relief. Curiously, diet and lifestyle cures also became fashionable. The Victorians believed that modern life, fast, noisy, polluted, was straining the body and mind. Doctors advised patients to avoid rich foods, spicy dishes, and alcohol if they suffered from headaches. Some even recommended a strict milk diet, where a patient consumed nothing but milk for weeks at a time. Others promoted water therapy, drinking vast amounts of mineral water, bathing in cold springs, or wrapping the head in wet bandages. In spa towns like Bath or Carlsbad, wealthy patients flocked to bathe, sip sulfurous waters, and rest in the hope that their headaches would dissolve into the mineral mist. Yet, even as doctors experimented with diet and drugs, older remedies persisted. Leeches were still applied in some cases, though less frequently. Herbal remedies continued as well. Peppermint oil, lavender compresses, and valerian root teas were suggested for those who preferred natural cures. What is fascinating is how the industrial age did not replace the old entirely, but layered new innovations atop ancient traditions, creating a mix of past and future in the fight against headaches. Another curious trend was the rise of psychological approaches. With new interest in the mind, some doctors suggested that headaches were linked to stress, overwork, or emotions. Patients were told to rest in darkened rooms, to avoid reading novels late into the night, or even to refrain from too much thinking. For women in particular, doctors often prescribed bed rest and avoidance of intellectual activity, claiming that mental strain could trigger migraines. This advice, though restrictive, marked a turning point, the recognition that headaches were not only physical, but also connected to the rhythms of the mind. When we look back, the 19th century appears as a time of both dazzling innovation and reckless experimentation. Cocaine wines, chloroform vapors, vibrating helmets, electrical belts, and patent medicines all emerged from an age that worshipped progress but often overlooked the dangers. At the same time, the persistence of spas, herbal teas, and rest showed that people still clung to gentler traditions. In a way, the 19th century embodies the eternal paradox of headache cures. The desire for relief drove people to try everything, from the soothing to the shocking, from the natural to the mechanical. And yet, behind these strange practices, one can sense a familiar truth. Headaches were a common thread linking the ordinary laborer, the aristocratic lady, and the ambitious inventor. All sought relief, all endured pain, and all turned to whatever their age offered them. Whether it was a machine that rattled the brain or a glass of cocoa wine sweetened with promise. Section 7. Early 20th Century Headache Remedies, Radium, Barbiturates, and Unusual Treatments. The early 20th century was an age of invention, fascination, and bold experimentation. Electricity was now commonplace in homes. Chemical compounds were being synthesized in laboratories, and medicine was embracing the promises of modern science. But headaches, the simple yet persistent ailment, remained a challenge. While doctors gained more knowledge about anatomy, neurology, and pharmacology, patients often faced treatments that now seem unusual, sometimes dangerous, but always remarkable in their creativity. One of the most curious and striking trends was the use of radium and other radioactive substances. Radium had been discovered in 1898 by Marie and Pierre Curie, and its mysterious energy captivated the public. Early medical practitioners, fascinated by its glowing properties, recommended radium for almost every ailment, including headaches. Patients were sometimes exposed to radium-infused waters or even asked to carry small radium-containing devices against their foreheads, believing that the energy would revive the nerves and clear the mind. The glow of radium was associated with vitality, and in an era before the dangers of radiation were fully understood, it was considered a glamorous, futuristic cure. Imagine placing a tiny glowing vial near your temple, hoping that the faint shimmer would carry away your throbbing pain. Alongside radium, the introduction of barbiturates and early sedatives offered new possibilities for headache sufferers. Chemists had begun isolating compounds that could calm the nervous system, induce sleep, or dull pain. Barbiturates, lauded for their ability to quiet anxiety, were frequently prescribed to patients suffering from chronic migraines or tension headaches. Doctors often recommended strict schedules, small doses in the evening to promote rest, larger doses during acute attacks. While effective at inducing sleep and temporarily dulling pain, these medications were also highly addictive, and overdoses were common before regulatory oversight became widespread. Yet at the time, they were seen as a miracle of modern chemistry, a precise, scientific answer to the age-old problem of head pain. Another intriguing method involved mechanical devices and massage apparatuses, now more advanced than their 19th century predecessors. Vibrating headbands, electric scalp massagers, and even oscillating chairs were sold to middle-class households. Advertisements claimed these machines could stimulate circulation, soothe nerve endings, and relax the mind, promising that a few minutes of mechanical therapy could replace hours of discomfort. Some contraptions were gentle, offering light vibration and warmth, while others rattled with surprising force, leaving the user slightly dizzy but reportedly relieved. The fascination with machines reflects the era's faith in progress. If electricity and engineering could power factories, perhaps they could also power away pain. The rise of psychoanalysis and neurology brought yet another dimension to headache treatment. Influenced by Sigmund Freud and other early psychologists, some physicians began exploring the connection between stress, emotion, and physical pain. Headaches were sometimes interpreted as a signal of subconscious tension, repressed feelings, or even moral strain. Patients were encouraged to relax in quiet rooms, to talk through their worries, or to keep journals of their moods and habits. Though this approach lacked the immediacy of a pill or mechanical device, it acknowledged that headaches were more than a simple biological event. They could reflect the intricate interplay between mind and body. Diet and lifestyle also became central to treatment. Physicians increasingly recognized that irregular meals, alcohol, tobacco, and lack of sleep could trigger headaches. Remedies included carefully timed meals, avoidance of stimulants or highly processed foods, and hydration with mineral waters or teas. Some patients were advised to adopt strict regimens involving morning walks, controlled exposure to sunlight, and periods of total rest. In sanatoriums or private homes, families were instructed to create calm, serene environments, dimly lit rooms, soft music, and gentle aromas designed to ease tension. The goal was holistic: treat the body, soothe the mind, and prevent further attacks. Curiously, the era also saw some more eccentric folk treatments persisting alongside scientific advances. Some people still applied leeches or poultices, believing that drawing out bad humors could relieve the pounding head. Others placed raw onions, warm flannel compresses, or even small live frogs near the temples in the hope of pulling out pain. In rural areas, traditions from previous centuries survived: walking barefoot on damp grass, drinking herbal infusions, or sleeping with a cold stone pressed against the forehead. These practices show how deeply ingrained certain beliefs were, and how new science often coexisted with centuries-old folk wisdom. Pharmaceutical companies also began advertising compound mixtures for headaches, blending caffeine, aspirin, and other emerging chemicals. Pills became easier to swallow, powders were sold in colorful tins, and elixirs promised rapid relief. Marketing often emphasized modernity and sophistication, portraying the product as a scientific solution superior to old home remedies. Consumers embraced these products eagerly, and the availability of over-the-counter headache medicines marked a major shift. Patients could now address pain themselves without waiting for a doctor to examine them. Through all these strange and sometimes dangerous remedies, one constant emerges: the desire for relief, comfort, and normalcy. Headaches, despite the passage of centuries and the rise of industry, remained a universal experience. Whether through glowing radium, vibrating machines, psychoanalytic insight, or chemical sedatives, early 20th century societies sought solutions that combined innovation, curiosity, and imagination. Each approach, no matter how peculiar, reflects a time when humanity was reaching boldly into the unknown, determined to master the simple but relentless torment of the head. And in reflecting on these methods, one can feel a gentle sense of wonder that across centuries, humans have been willing to experiment, adapt, and imagine every possible path to relief, sometimes with electricity, sometimes with herbs, sometimes with vibrations or chemicals, but always with hope and care. Section 8. Mid-20th century headache remedies, pills, injections, and experimental innovations. By the mid-20th century, medicine had taken remarkable strides. Hospitals were better equipped, pharmaceuticals more advanced, and neurologists had begun to map the human brain in ways that were once unimaginable. Headaches, which had puzzled humans for millennia, were now understood as physiological events influenced by blood vessels, nerves, hormones, and stress. Yet even with scientific progress, the search for relief continued to inspire unusual and inventive approaches. The mid-1900s combined rational medicine with experimentation, resulting in treatments both fascinating and sometimes odd. One of the most significant changes of this era was the widespread availability of headache medications. Aspirin, which had been introduced in the late 19th century, became a household staple. Its mechanism, relieving inflammation and reducing pain, was revolutionary. Doctors recommended taking it at the first sign of a headache, and marketing emphasized its reliability and speed. However, many mid-20th century physicians also experimented with new synthetic compounds, combining caffeine with aspirin or including other chemicals intended to increase effectiveness. These cocktail pills became popular, sold in small tins or colorful boxes, and promised fast relief for busy office workers, homemakers, and factory laborers alike. In addition to oral medications, injections became a common practice. Physicians discovered that certain substances, when injected into muscles, veins, or even the base of the skull, could alleviate chronic migraines. Some injections included mild anesthetics, while others used newly synthesized painkillers. Patients often described the experience as momentarily strange, a sudden cooling or tingling sensation, followed by a slow release of pressure from the head. The precision of these injections represented a major shift. The headache was no longer just a vague pain. It could now be targeted at the source, guided by anatomy and observation. Electrical stimulation made a comeback during this period, though in a more controlled, scientific form than in earlier centuries. Doctors experimented with transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, or TENS, applying mild electrical currents to specific nerve points on the head and neck. Unlike the startling sparks of the Enlightenment, these currents were gentle, soothing, and calibrated. Patients often reported a sense of warmth and relaxation, as if the nerves themselves were being lulled into calm. Some clinics combine these treatments with massage, heat, or cold compresses to create a multisensory therapy designed to ease tension headaches. Interestingly, diet and lifestyle remedies persisted, but with a modern twist. Physicians recognized triggers such as stress, dehydration, and certain foods. Chocolate, cheese, and caffeinated beverages were identified as potential headache triggers, while hydration, proper sleep, and regular exercise were prescribed preventatively. Clinics often encouraged patients to maintain logs of their daily habits, helping doctors pinpoint patterns and customize recommendations. This method may have seemed slow compared to pills or injections, but it reflected a new scientific rigor, data-driven, personalized treatment. The mid-20th century also witnessed a fascination with alternative and experimental therapies. Acupuncture, a practice rooted in ancient Chinese medicine, gained attention in Europe and North America. Some patients found that the careful placement of thin needles along nerve pathways could reduce pain, a practice that combined tactile sensation, meditation, and physiological response. Similarly, aromatherapy emerged as a soothing adjunct to treatment, with essential oils like peppermint or lavender applied to the temples or inhaled, producing relaxation and a gentle, calming aroma. Another unusual trend involved cold therapy and ice packs, used both in hospitals and at home. Physicians noticed that applying cold compresses to the forehead or the back of the neck could constrict blood vessels and reduce the throbbing pain of migraines. In some cases, they even recommended submersion of the head in cold water or wrapping the scalp in chilled cloths. The sensory contrast, a sudden cold on warm skin, provided a strange but effective relief for many patients, a tactile approach that complemented the chemical and electrical treatments already in use. For more severe cases, Mid-century neurologists explored surgical interventions, though these were rare. Procedures ranged from minor nerve decompressions to experimental operations aimed at disrupting nerve signals responsible for chronic migraines. Such surgeries were only performed in specialized hospitals, often as a last resort. While the techniques may seem extreme, they demonstrate the commitment of physicians to relieve suffering, even when conventional methods failed. Amid all these innovations, one enduring theme was observation. Doctors closely monitored patients, documenting headache frequency, severity, and response to treatments. This was the era in which headache clinics emerged, combining scientific rigor with a patient-centered approach. Patients were encouraged to discuss lifestyle, emotional state, and diet, and treatments were adapted accordingly. The mid-20th century thus represents a turning point. The headache was no longer seen as a mysterious curse or purely a physical phenomenon. Instead, it was recognized as an intricate combination of body, mind, and environment, meriting a careful, multifaceted approach. Even with all the new science, some older remedies lingered. Hot baths, herbal teas, and gentle massage remained popular at home, often combined with modern pills or injections. Families might gather in dimly lit rooms, sipping chamomile tea, using ice packs, or inhaling essential oils, quietly waiting for the pounding to ease. This blend of old and new, chemistry, technology, and centuries-old tradition characterized mid-20th century headache care. In the end, the early 1900s illustrate a world in transition. Modern medicine provided unprecedented tools, synthesized drugs, electrical stimulation, injections, and surgical options. Yet humans continued to rely on comfort, ritual, and observation as much as science. This era shows that the pursuit of headache relief is timeless. Each century brings new techniques, but the goal remains unchanged: peace, clarity, and the simple joy of a mind free from pain. Section 9. Late 20th century headache remedies, pharmaceuticals, relaxation, and emerging therapies. By the latter half of the 20th century, the world had entered an age of rapid medical advancement. Hospitals were equipped with cutting-edge technology, pharmaceuticals were increasingly sophisticated, and research into neurology was uncovering new insights about the brain. Headaches, as common as they were persistent, became a subject of rigorous scientific study. While people had always experimented with remedies, this era saw a dramatic expansion in options. From precise medications to lifestyle therapies, from relaxation techniques to surprisingly inventive approaches. One of the most significant changes during this period was the introduction of new classes of medications specifically designed to target migraines and chronic headaches. Triptans, first developed in the 1980s, were revolutionary. They worked by targeting serotonin receptors, constricting blood vessels, and reducing inflammation. Unlike older remedies, which often relied on general sedatives or painkillers, triptans offered precision. They could be taken orally, injected, or delivered as nasal sprays, and they provided relief within hours. Patients described the experience as a gentle easing of pressure, a gradual lightening of the head, and a quieting of the mind's constant throb. Alongside prescription medications, over-the-counter solutions expanded dramatically. Analgesics like acetaminophen, ibuprofen, and combination formulas became widely available. The convenience and speed of these remedies transformed daily life. People could carry pills in purses or pockets, ready to take at the first sign of pain. Advertisements emphasized quick relief and safety, encouraging self-care while subtly promoting a sense of personal control over a condition that had once felt mysterious and uncontrollable. During this time, the field of behavioral therapy grew in prominence. Headaches were increasingly understood as influenced not only by physical triggers, but also by stress, tension, and mental health. Techniques such as biofeedback, progressive muscle relaxation, and guided imagery were developed to help patients manage pain without drugs. In a typical session, a patient might lie in a quiet room, sensors tracking muscle tension or heart rate, while they practiced slow breathing and visualization. The goal was to teach the body to release tension, reduce nerve activation, and ease the headache gradually. These methods were gentle, non-invasive, and calming, perfectly suited to those seeking relief in a serene, measured way. Physical therapy and posture correction also became important. Research indicated that tension headaches often arose from neck and shoulder strain. Therapists employed exercises, stretches, and massage techniques to relieve tight muscles and improve circulation. Patients were encouraged to maintain proper posture, avoid repetitive strain, and incorporate small stretches throughout the day. This hands-on approach, combined with ergonomic improvements in workplaces, represented a practical and soothing method of prevention. Emerging alternative therapies also gained popularity. Acupuncture continued its rise in Western medicine, used alongside conventional treatments to relieve migraines and tension headaches. Practitioners inserted thin needles at strategic points along the body's meridians, with the goal of releasing blocked energy and promoting relaxation. Some patients reported profound relief, while others found the ritual calming even if the pain did not entirely disappear. Aromatherapy, too, became widely practiced, with essential oils like peppermint, lavender, and eucalyptus applied to the temples or inhaled gently. The fragrances created a sensory environment that was soothing and meditative, complementing both pharmaceutical and behavioral treatments. Interestingly, cold and heat therapies evolved with new materials and devices. Gel packs, microwavable pads, and cooling wraps allowed patients to control temperature with precision. Cold packs applied to the forehead could constrict blood vessels and reduce swelling, while warm compresses on the neck or shoulders relaxed tense muscles. Some advanced devices combined mild vibration with temperature control, providing a multi-sensory experience that eased both physical and mental tension. Patients often described the sensation as a gradual unburdening of the head, a slow, gentle release of pressure and discomfort. Education and self-awareness became central to management. Headache diaries were widely recommended, helping patients track triggers such as food, sleep patterns, stress, or hormonal changes. Patients learned to recognize early warning signs and implement preventive measures before headaches escalated. Over time, this proactive approach allowed individuals to feel empowered and calm, shifting the focus from reactive treatment to mindful prevention. Even with scientific progress, some older remedies persisted. Herbal teas, meditation, light exercise, and quiet rest remained valuable tools. Families continued to dim lights, create tranquil environments, and encourage slow breathing as a form of care. This blending of new science with centuries-old practices underscores the enduring truth. While the means of relief evolve, the human desire for comfort, serenity, and the quieting of pain remains unchanged. By the late 20th century, Headache treatment had become a nuanced interplay of pharmaceuticals, behavioral methods, physical therapy, alternative practices, and preventive strategies. The experience of relief was increasingly tailored to the individual, combining the precision of science with the calming influence of environment and routine. This era demonstrates that even in an age of rapid technological progress, the human need for gentle, attentive care continues to shape the ways we soothe and understand pain. In reflecting on this period, one can sense a quiet reassurance. Across centuries, humans have persistently sought to ease suffering, combining imagination, observation, and care. The mid to late 20th century shows that even as remedies became more scientific, the pursuit of comfort, mindfulness, and serenity remains central to healing. Section 10. Early 21st century headache remedies, neuromodulation, CGRP inhibitors, and holistic care. As the 21st century began, medicine had entered a remarkable era of precision, technology, and holistic awareness. Headaches, which had challenged humans for centuries, were now understood in ways that combined neuroscience, pharmacology, and lifestyle medicine. The early 2000s introduced innovative approaches that were both scientifically advanced and, in many ways, gentle and patient-centered. Headache management became a balance of cutting-edge technology and calming, human-focused care, reflecting centuries of accumulated knowledge. One of the most groundbreaking developments was the introduction of CGRP inhibitors, a new class of medications specifically targeting migraine mechanisms. CGRP, or calcitonin gene-related peptide, is a molecule involved in the transmission of migraine pain. By blocking its action, these medications could prevent or reduce the intensity of migraines. Patients often reported a subtle, gradual relief, a sense that the pressure and pulsing in the head were being eased, without the drowsiness or side effects associated with older painkillers. The precision of CGRP inhibitors represented a new era, relief targeted at the molecular level, while allowing patients to maintain clarity and calm. Alongside pharmacological innovation, neuromodulation devices emerged. These small, non-invasive instruments applied electrical or magnetic stimulation to specific nerves or regions of the brain associated with headache. Some devices were worn on the head or neck. Others applied pulses to the wrist or hand. The sensation was gentle, a soft vibration or mild tingling, designed to interrupt pain signals and soothe nerve activity. Clinical studies suggested significant improvement for patients with chronic migraines or cluster headaches, and many individuals described the experience as simultaneously calming and relieving. It was a fusion of modern technology with the timeless desire for comfort and control over one's own body. Behavioral therapies also evolved with digital tools. Guided meditation apps, biofeedback devices, and virtual relaxation programs became widely accessible. Patients could practice mindfulness, control breathing patterns, and monitor muscle tension from home. The combination of technological feedback and calming exercises offered a sense of empowerment and serenity. Even simple practices, slow breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or visualizing a quiet landscape, gained new effectiveness when paired with real-time data and personalized tracking. This integration of mind, body, and technology reflects a long-standing human impulse to approach headache relief thoughtfully, gently, and attentively. Diet and lifestyle remained central. Modern research highlighted triggers such as caffeine overuse, processed foods, dehydration, irregular sleep, and stress. Patients were encouraged to maintain structured routines, ensure proper hydration, and incorporate gentle physical activity, such as walking, yoga, or stretching. Environmental modifications like reducing harsh lighting, minimizing noise, and creating quiet spaces were emphasized. Even in an age of pills and devices, these calming strategies remained foundational, showing that the quiet rhythms of daily life are as important to headache management as any scientific breakthrough. Alternative and complementary therapies also flourished. Acupuncture, once considered exotic, became mainstream in many clinics. Massage therapy, aromatherapy, and craniosacral techniques offered soothing, hands-on care. Essential oils like lavender, peppermint, and rosemary were applied with gentle massage, creating both a physical and sensory sense of relief. Patients frequently described these therapies as nurturing, almost meditative, complementing the precision of modern medications and devices. The integration of psychology and stress management became particularly important. Cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and counseling were recognized as effective tools for preventing headaches. These approaches focused on reducing emotional triggers, improving coping skills, and fostering a sense of calm control. In quiet therapy rooms, patients practiced deep breathing, mental visualization, or journaling, learning to observe and gently shift their bodily responses to tension. This blend of science and serenity illustrates a recurring theme across centuries. Healing involves both the body and the mind. Early 21st century clinics also experimented with light and sound therapies. Soft, pulsing light, gentle music, or binaural beats were used to create a calming environment, reduce stress, and ease tension. Patients reported that these subtle sensory experiences complemented medication or neuromodulation treatments, providing a holistic, immersive form of care. The focus was never on rushing relief, but on creating a gentle, supportive environment where the body and mind could slowly release discomfort. Even in an age of advanced science, some traditional remedies endured. Hydration, herbal teas, warm baths, gentle massage, and meditation remained valuable. Families continued to provide quiet spaces, soft lighting, and calming routines for those suffering. Modern medicine, it seemed, was less about replacing centuries of wisdom and more about enhancing it, combining precise interventions with the timeless principles of comfort, attentiveness, and gentle care. Ultimately, the early 21st century illustrates a harmonious balance. The sophistication of modern pharmacology and neuromodulation, paired with mindfulness, relaxation, and attention to daily life. Headache management is no longer a one-size-fits-all solution, but a layered, holistic practice. Each method, whether it's a molecularly targeted medication or a gentle meditation, reflects humanity's enduring desire to quiet the mind, soothe the body, and experience a moment of peace, free from the persistent ache of pain. Section 11. Cutting-edge headache remedies in the 2020s, integrative and personalized approaches. In the present decade, the landscape of headache treatment has become more precise, personalized, and integrative than ever before. Advances in neurology, genetics, digital health, and holistic care have combined to offer relief that is both scientifically effective and calming to the mind. Patients today can access treatments that were once the realm of imagination, from gene-targeted medications to wearable neuromodulation devices, all within the framework of mindful self-care and integrative medicine. One of the most transformative developments has been the advancement of CGRP inhibitors. Modern formulations of these medications allow for monthly or even quarterly injections, providing long-term prevention for migraine sufferers. Patients often describe a subtle easing of pressure and throbbing, a gradual lightening of the head, and an enhanced sense of control over their daily lives. The innovation lies not only in the medication itself, but in its precision. Doctors can tailor dosing and schedules to individual patterns, taking into account lifestyle, triggers, and genetics. Neuromodulation technology has continued to evolve, becoming more compact, wearable, and user-friendly. Devices such as transcutaneous vagus nerve stimulators and peripheral nerve stimulators offer gentle electrical pulses designed to calm overactive nerves. Patients can wear these devices on the neck, wrist, or behind the ear, allowing for discreet at-home therapy. The sensations are soothing rather than alarming: soft tingles, rhythmic pulses, or gentle warmth, which contribute to relaxation while alleviating pain. Peace therapies demonstrate a fascinating blend of modern science and subtle, comforting sensory experience. Digital health tools have become increasingly central to care. Smartphone apps, wearable trackers, and online portals enable patients to monitor headache frequency, triggers, sleep patterns, hydration, and stress levels. Data-driven insights allow both doctors and patients to adjust treatments in real time. For example, a patient may notice that reduced screen time, improved sleep hygiene, and regular meditation correlate with fewer headaches. The process fosters mindfulness and calm. Each small observation empowers patients to make gentle adjustments that gradually reduce discomfort. Lifestyle interventions remain foundational. Nutrition, hydration, sleep, exercise, and stress management are emphasized alongside advanced treatments. Modern headache clinics often provide guided programs for mindfulness, yoga, and gentle physical activity. Patients might participate in slow stretching sessions, meditation workshops, or breathing exercises, all designed to soothe the nervous system. These interventions, while seemingly simple, integrate centuries of wisdom with contemporary science, demonstrating that quiet, consistent care can be profoundly effective. Alternative therapies continue to complement mainstream medicine. Acupuncture, massage, aromatherapy, and craniosacral therapy are widely used alongside medications and neuromodulation. The key is sensory and emotional balance. Peppermint oil applied to the temples, lavender diffused in a calm room, or gentle neck massage can ease muscle tension and create a meditative environment. Patients often report that the combination of physical relief and calming ritual is nearly as important as pharmacological effects, highlighting the intertwined nature of body and mind in headache management. Innovative pain management techniques have also emerged. Virtual reality, VR therapy, is used to immerse patients in calming, multisensory environments. Patients can virtually walk through serene forests, float above gentle waves, or sit in softly lit rooms, distracting the brain from pain and promoting relaxation. This approach demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of perception. By gently redirecting attention and reducing stress, VR can complement medications and neuromodulation, enhancing the patient's overall sense of comfort. Genetics and personalized medicine are now shaping treatment like never before. Researchers can analyze individual patient profiles to predict response to medications, identify environmental triggers, and even forecast headache cycles. This information allows for tailored regimens combining pharmaceutical, behavioral, and lifestyle strategies for maximum effectiveness. Patients are no longer passive recipients of treatment. They are active participants in a finely tuned, individualized plan that respects both their physiology and their experience of calm. Even with high-tech advancements, some traditional remedies remain valuable. Hydration, herbal teas, rest in darkened rooms, and gentle massage continue to be recommended. These simple interventions provide an immediate sense of comfort, complementing sophisticated devices and medications. Patients often incorporate rituals such as warm baths, quiet music, or scented oils into their daily routines, enhancing both psychological and physical relaxation. Integrative headache care today emphasizes balance and mindfulness. Science provides precision and effectiveness, while lifestyle, sensory therapy, and stress management offer calm and comfort. The modern approach reflects centuries of accumulated knowledge. Human beings have always sought not only relief from pain, but also serenity in the process. Each device, pill, or meditation practice is part of a larger tapestry, woven with attention, care, and gentle observation. The 2020s reveal a harmonious vision of headache treatment. Patients experience the cutting edge of medical science while enveloped in a calming, supportive environment. Relief is no longer about urgency or brute force, but about thoughtful, measured intervention. The integration of technology, personalized medicine, and mindful care illustrates an enduring truth. Healing is most profound when it addresses both body and mind, bringing comfort, peace, and a quiet restoration of well-being. Section 12. Future Possibilities, Emerging Therapies and the Next Era of Headache Relief. As medicine continues to advance into the 21st century, the future of headache treatment looks both promising and deeply personal. Scientists, clinicians, and researchers are exploring technologies and methods that blend precision science with gentle human-centered care. The focus is not only on relieving pain, but also on understanding the brain's complex mechanisms and creating holistic strategies that integrate mind, body, and environment. In this future-oriented perspective, headache management becomes a calm, ongoing practice rather than a reactive or urgent intervention. One area of significant interest is genetic and molecular therapy. Researchers are studying the specific genes and neural pathways that predispose individuals to migraines or chronic headaches. By understanding these intricate mechanisms, future treatments may be tailored to the individual at a cellular level. Imagine a therapy that can predict the onset of a migraine and deliver subtle, precise interventions, whether through medication, nerve stimulation, or metabolic regulation, before the pain fully manifests. This proactive approach offers a sense of quiet control, allowing patients to anticipate and prevent headaches rather than merely responding to them. Advanced neuromodulation techniques are also on the horizon. Beyond current wearable devices, researchers are developing implants and non-invasive brain stimulation tools that can gently regulate nerve activity in real time. These devices may use electrical pulses, magnetic fields, or even light to influence neural circuits. Patients could experience a slow, soothing adjustment of nerve activity, subtly easing tension and preventing the cascade of pain signals that lead to headaches. The process is intended to be calming, non-intrusive, and highly precise, reinforcing the principle that relief can be both effective and gentle. Artificial intelligence and digital health are increasingly being applied to headache management. AI algorithms can analyze vast amounts of patient data, detecting subtle patterns and predicting triggers. These insights allow for highly personalized interventions, from lifestyle adjustments to medication timing. For example, A patient's wearable device might detect early physiological changes, prompting a recommendation for a calming breathing exercise, hydration, or light therapy. This anticipatory approach adds an element of serenity. Patients feel guided and supported by a system attuned to their unique rhythms. Emerging biochemical and nanotechnology therapies hold intriguing potential. Nanoparticles may one day deliver drugs precisely to the neurons or blood vessels involved in migraine activity, minimizing side effects and maximizing effectiveness. Biochemical sensors could detect the earliest molecular signs of headache onset, triggering gentle, automated relief. While these technologies are still in research stages, they represent a future in which interventions are delicate, targeted, and deeply personalized, offering both relief and a quiet sense of reassurance. Holistic approaches continue to evolve alongside technological advances. Mindfulness, meditation, and virtual reality therapies are being integrated into treatment plans with increasing sophistication. Patients may use VR to enter calming, immersive environments that reduce stress and sensory overload. Meditation apps, guided breathing programs, and biofeedback devices can synchronize with daily routines, creating a rhythm of calm that supports both mental and physical well-being. The blending of science and mindfulness underscores an enduring principle. Healing is most effective when it addresses both the physical sensation of pain and the body's emotional response. Dietary and environmental precision is also becoming a focus. Nutrigenomics, the study of how nutrition interacts with an individual's genetic profile, may allow future patients to tailor their diet to minimize headache triggers. Similarly, adaptive lighting, temperature control, and ambient soundscapes could be integrated into homes and workplaces to maintain a calm, supportive environment for brain health. These innovations highlight the importance of subtle environmental and lifestyle cues in preventing and managing headaches. Despite these technological leaps, centuries-old wisdom remains relevant. Simple practices, resting in dimly lit rooms, maintaining hydration, gentle massage, and mindful breathing will continue to complement high-tech interventions. The combination of old and new, of ritual and precision, reflects the timeless human need for comfort, reassurance, and serenity in the face of discomfort. Each future therapy, whether high-tech or simple, emphasizes attention, care, and the gentle nurturing of the body and mind. The future of headache treatment is a landscape of possibilities: predictive medicine, personalized neuromodulation, AI-driven interventions, biochemical precision, and integrative wellness practices. All of these methods are united by a calm philosophy. Healing is not merely about eliminating pain, but about creating an environment, both internal and external, where the body can function harmoniously and the mind can remain at ease. As we look ahead, it becomes clear that the journey of headache management mirrors the broader story of human care. Across centuries, humans have combined observation, creativity, technology, and compassion to address discomfort. In the future, these efforts will be enhanced by precision science and innovative therapies, but they will continue to honor the essential principles of calm, attentive care. Each gentle intervention, whether high-tech or traditional, contributes to a tapestry of relief, mindfulness, and serenity. Even as treatments advance, the essence of care remains unchanged. Humans seek comfort, predictability, and reassurance in the face of discomfort. The future promises that these needs will be met with both sophistication and grace, creating a world where headache relief is not only effective, but also profoundly calming and restorative. Section 13. Lessons from History. Headache Prevention Across the Ages. Humans have sought ways to prevent headaches for thousands of years. From the earliest civilizations to the present, people have observed patterns in their bodies, environments, and daily routines, developing strategies to anticipate and avoid pain. Understanding these historical practices provides not only insight into past cultures, but also a sense of calm continuity. The efforts of our ancestors echo in the modern methods we use today. In ancient Egypt, physicians and healers emphasized balance and moderation. They observed that headaches often followed periods of fatigue, hunger, or exposure to strong smells. Remedies included gentle head massages with aromatic oils, cooling compresses applied to the forehead, and careful attention to diet. Herbs such as willow, known for its pain-relieving properties, were consumed as teas or poultices. Egyptians also recognized the importance of rest in quiet, dimly lit spaces, creating early examples of structured routines to prevent discomfort. These early methods highlight a theme still relevant today. Prevention often begins with observation, rhythm, and care. Greek and Roman societies expanded on these ideas with detailed writings on health. Physicians like Hippocrates noted that headaches could be triggered by diet, weather changes, and emotional states. Greeks often recommended gentle exercise, moderate eating, and consistent sleep patterns as preventive measures. Romans added bathing and hydrotherapy to the toolkit, believing that alternating warm and cool water could regulate the nervous system and reduce the risk of headache onset. Even the structure of daily life, the timing of meals, rest, and work, was considered crucial in maintaining balance. The emphasis was not only on treatment, but also on creating a harmonious environment where pain might be avoided entirely. During the medieval period, headache prevention incorporated both empirical observation and spiritual beliefs. Monastic communities in Europe often kept meticulous records of environmental conditions, weather, and daily routines, noting when headaches were most likely to occur. Herbal remedies were widely used, including chamomile, peppermint, and lavender, sometimes applied as infusions, inhalations, or compresses. People were advised to maintain moderation in all things: food, drink, and physical exertion. Quiet reflection and prayer also provided a calming routine, reducing stress, which was understood, in practical terms, to influence headache risk. In the early modern era, physicians began documenting case histories and experimenting with new interventions. Gentle bloodletting, though now understood differently, was sometimes employed to prevent recurring pain, accompanied by careful observation of diet and exercise. Aromatic substances like rosemary and sage were inhaled or applied to the temples, offering a sensory form of prevention. These strategies emphasized regularity, awareness of personal triggers, and calm, methodical care, concepts that resonate even in contemporary approaches to migraine prevention. The 18th and 19th centuries brought new understanding with emerging knowledge of physiology and circulation. Physicians recognized the connection between stress, overwork, and vascular changes that can provoke headaches. Preventive strategies included regular walks, exposure to fresh air, and light dietary moderation. Early spa treatments, incorporating mineral baths and gentle hydrotherapy, were used not only to soothe existing pain, but to reduce the likelihood of future attacks. Patients were encouraged to create calming daily routines, to avoid excess, and to cultivate environments that reduced stressors, a clear continuation of centuries-old wisdom. By the 20th century, preventive strategies combined lifestyle, pharmacology, and behavioral therapies. Doctors advised regular sleep, moderate consumption of stimulants like caffeine, and structured work-rest cycles. Stress management gained increasing recognition, with early forms of guided relaxation, biofeedback, and meditation becoming integrated into routine care. While medications became available for both treatment and prevention, the importance of environment, mindfulness, and attention to routine persisted as foundational principles. The echoes of ancient practices, aromatic oils, gentle massage, bathing, and moderation remained relevant even in technologically advanced contexts. Today, the historical thread continues in modern integrative care. Clinicians encourage patients to maintain diaries to track triggers, including food, weather, sleep patterns, and emotional states. Gentle exercises such as yoga and Tai Chi, mindfulness meditation, and controlled breathing are all recommended to reduce vulnerability to headaches. Hydrotherapy, warm compresses, and aromatherapy remain calming adjuncts, even as neuromodulation devices and targeted medications provide scientific precision. The underlying philosophy echoes centuries of observation. Careful, consistent care and attention to rhythm can prevent much discomfort. History shows that humanity's approach to headache prevention has always been multifaceted, combining observation, environment, routine, and gentle intervention. From the aromatic oils of Egypt to the hydrotherapy of Rome, the monastic records of medieval Europe, and the integrative practices of today, the common thread is clear. Prevention relies not only on external remedies, but on cultivating calm, attentive care, awareness of patterns, and structured daily practices. Through the lens of history, we can appreciate the continuity of human ingenuity, each generation built upon the observations of the last, refining techniques to soothe, calm, and prevent discomfort. The practices of our ancestors, though simple by today's standards, were deeply informed by mindfulness, attentiveness, and a sense of rhythm. Modern medicine may now provide precise, individualized interventions, but the core principles, careful observation, structured routine, gentle treatment, and environmental harmony, remain remarkably consistent. The study of historical preventive methods also brings a subtle sense of reassurance. Humans have always sought ways to live with ease and minimize suffering. By understanding and respecting these practices, we can integrate the wisdom of the past with the innovations of the present. Headache prevention, ultimately, is not merely a clinical endeavor. It is a practice of attentiveness, serenity, and gentle self-care, passed down through centuries and still relevant today. Section 14. Global Traditions, Headache Remedies Across Cultures. Headaches have been a universal human experience for millennia, and across the world, people have developed a rich diversity of remedies and preventive practices. From the rolling hills of Europe to the river valleys of Asia, the deserts of Africa, and the islands of the Pacific, cultures have sought to ease discomfort with creativity, observation, and gentle care. Exploring these global traditions reveals not only unusual remedies, but also a shared commitment to calming, mindful approaches to pain. In traditional Chinese medicine, headaches have long been associated with imbalances in the body's energy, or qi, and disturbances in circulation. Practitioners used acupuncture to stimulate specific points along meridians, restoring balance and preventing the onset of pain. Herbs such as ginkgo, ginger, and chrysanthemum were brewed into teas or applied as poultices. Patients often participated in slow, deliberate breathing exercises and meditation to regulate internal energy. The combination of sensory awareness, gentle touch, and mindful observation created a deeply calming ritual, even as it worked to prevent headaches. Ayurvedic medicine in India emphasized the interplay of body, mind, and environment. Headaches were classified according to doshas, or bodily humors, and treatments were personalized to the individual's constitution. Oils such as sesame or coconut were warmed and massaged into the scalp and forehead, sometimes accompanied by herbal pastes. Aromatic substances, including sandalwood and camphor, were diffused or applied directly to calm the senses. Gentle yoga, meditation, and attention to diet were central to prevention. These practices reinforced an ongoing awareness of one's body and environment, encouraging routines that maintained balance and serenity. In Africa, various tribal communities developed remedies based on local herbs, minerals, and environmental knowledge. In some regions, crushed roots and leaves were applied to the temples or inhaled as steam. Warm baths, often infused with aromatic plants, were used both for relief and for preventing recurrent headaches. Community rituals, rhythmic drumming, and storytelling were also incorporated into care, emphasizing social support and emotional balance as essential to health. The gentle rhythms of these practices, combined with the sensory experience of warmth, scent, and touch, reflect a calm, holistic approach to pain management. Among the indigenous peoples of the Americas, headaches were understood as signals of imbalance between body, mind, and spirit. Remedies often involved herbal infusions, such as peppermint, willow bark, or feverfew, known for their soothing properties. Smudging with sacred herbs like sage or sweetgrass was used to purify the environment and calm the senses. Gentle rituals, including quiet reflection, rhythmic chanting, or exposure to natural landscapes, provided emotional and sensory relief. Even simple practices, like resting near a stream or under a shade tree, were appreciated for their restorative and preventive qualities. In Japan, the art of forest bathing, or Shinrin-yoku, has roots in ancient practices. While modern research supports its stress-reducing effects, historically, people observed that quiet time among trees and nature could alleviate or prevent headaches. Herbal remedies, including camellia, green tea, and ginseng, were used to maintain circulation and calm the nervous system. Gentle stretching, tea ceremonies, and mindful observation of the surroundings reinforced a sense of calm and attentiveness to the body's subtle signals. The integration of nature, ritual, and sensory engagement created a preventive framework that continues to inspire modern wellness practices. Even in European folk medicine, local herbs, mineral waters, and simple routines were central to headache care. Lavender, rosemary, and peppermint were applied as oils, teas, or compresses. Cold or warm cloths were used on the forehead, and spas and thermal springs were often visited to prevent recurring discomfort. The sensory experience, the warmth of water, the scent of herbs, the gentle touch of cloth, provided both psychological and physical relief. Rituals of quiet, observation, and moderation were emphasized, showing a continuity of gentle preventive care across centuries. Across all cultures, certain common themes emerge. Observation of triggers, whether diet, sleep patterns, weather, or emotional states, is universal. Gentle sensory interventions, including herbal aromas, touch, and heat or cold, are consistent methods of both prevention and relief. Rituals and mindful practices, whether through meditation, breathing, or quiet reflection, are valued for their calming effects. Even when remedies differ in materials or methods, the underlying principle remains the same. A gentle, attentive approach supports both prevention and serenity. Historical and global perspectives remind us that headache care is not only about immediate relief, but also about creating a lifestyle and environment that reduces vulnerability. By blending sensory attention, careful observation, environmental adjustment, and mindful practices, people across the world have developed strategies that are both effective and soothing. Each culture's approach demonstrates an understanding of the interconnectedness of body, mind, and surroundings, a principle that is still echoed in contemporary integrative medicine. Exploring global traditions also reveals a sense of continuity across time and space. Whether through ancient oils, herbal teas, ritual baths, or mindful routines, humans have consistently sought to harmonize their environment, behaviors, and senses to prevent pain. These practices, both simple and sophisticated, emphasize calm observation and gentle action, reminding us that the pursuit of wellness has always been a balance between scientific understanding and the art of attentive care. Ultimately, the study of headache remedies around the world offers both insight and reassurance. The ancient wisdom of multiple cultures continues to inspire modern preventive strategies, highlighting the timeless interplay between observation, ritual, and sensory engagement. By embracing these lessons, we can cultivate routines and environments that protect against pain while fostering a deep sense of calm, mindfulness, and holistic well-being. Section 15. Final Reflections, a journey through headache relief across time. As we conclude this journey through the history of headache remedies, we can pause to reflect on the remarkable continuity of human care and curiosity. Across thousands of years and countless cultures, people have observed the delicate rhythms of the body, the subtle influence of the environment, and the ways that mind and body interact. Whether through ancient oils, herbal teas, massages, rituals, or modern technology, humans have sought relief with patience, creativity, and care. In every era, there is a common thread: a quiet determination to understand discomfort and to find gentle ways to prevent and soothe it. In the earliest civilizations, Egyptians and Mesopotamians emphasized balance, rest, and simple herbal remedies. They recognized the importance of calming the senses and structuring daily life to reduce vulnerability to pain. In Greece and Rome, physicians added bathing, hydrotherapy, and moderate exercise to the preventive toolkit, along with careful attention to diet and emotional states. These practices reveal an early understanding that headache prevention was not simply a medical task, but a lifestyle of attentiveness and serenity. During the medieval period, monks, herbalists, and community healers documented patterns of pain and developed remedies that combined empirical observation with spiritual and sensory care. Warm compresses, aromatic herbs, and careful daily routines were used alongside prayer and meditation, showing that holistic approaches were valued long before the concept became popular in modern medicine. Across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas, similar themes emerge: observation, gentle intervention, ritual, and harmony with the natural environment. The early modern period brought increased scientific understanding, but the principles remained similar. Physicians studied circulation, diet, and environmental influences on headache occurrence. Spa treatments, hydrotherapy, and early relaxation techniques emphasized the importance of rhythm and calm. Even as pharmacology began to emerge, the value of gentle, preventive care continued to be recognized. Patients were encouraged to pace themselves, pay attention to triggers, and incorporate quiet routines into daily life. In more recent centuries, the integration of mind, body, and environment has become central. Mindfulness, meditation, yoga, and controlled breathing are now used alongside medications and neuromodulation devices. Nutritional science and environmental adjustments, such as light, sound, and temperature, are carefully studied to prevent triggers. Across every innovation, the underlying philosophy echoes the wisdom of the past. A calm, attentive approach fosters both prevention and resilience. Globally, we see striking similarities across cultures. In China, meridian-based therapies and herbal infusions regulate energy. In India, Ayurvedic oils, herbs, and yoga support balance. In Africa and the Americas, ritual, herbs, and sensory interventions offer preventive care. And in Europe and Japan, baths, mineral springs, forest bathing, and gentle observation maintain harmony. While the materials and techniques differ, the essence of care, observation, attention, ritual, and gentle intervention is universal. Modern science builds upon these foundations. Wearable devices, artificial intelligence, and precise medications allow early detection and highly personalized treatment. Yet even with technological sophistication, many of the ancient principles endure: structured routines, mindful awareness, environmental attention, and gentle sensory engagement remain crucial in preventing headaches. The wisdom of centuries reminds us that healing is most effective when it attends to both body and mind. As we reflect on this long journey, it is calming to realize that humans have always sought to understand their bodies, to prevent discomfort, and to nurture themselves with care and patience. Headache relief, in its many forms, tells a story of observation, innovation, and empathy. From the oils of ancient Egypt to modern neuromodulation, from herbal teas to mindfulness, each practice reflects a profound attention to detail, a sensitivity to the rhythms of life, and a desire to live with comfort and calm. Through history, we see that prevention is not merely a medical practice, but a way of living attentively. Simple routines, careful observation, environmental awareness, gentle touch, and mindful reflection have always been powerful allies against discomfort. The lessons of the past encourage us to slow down, notice our patterns, and integrate calm practices into our daily lives. In this way, historical insights are not only fascinating, they are quietly instructive, guiding us toward balance and serenity. As we bring this narration to a close, it is peaceful to think of all the generations who have navigated the challenge of headaches with care, observation, and gentle remedies. Their efforts echo into our present, reminding us that relief is not just the absence of pain, but the presence of calm, attention, and thoughtful self-care. Every gentle touch, every mindful breath, every soothing environment continues a lineage of human effort to live with comfort and awareness. May this exploration of history, remedies, and human ingenuity leave you with a sense of calm. Let the echoes of these centuries-old practices remind you of the quiet power of observation, patience, and gentle care. As you rest, imagine the slow, steady rhythms of care across time. The soft fragrances of herbal oils, the warmth of gentle baths, and the quiet attentiveness of ancestors who understood the value of calm and prevention. Let this sense of continuity, care, and serenity guide you into a restful, peaceful state. And now, as our journey comes to a gentle close, allow your mind and body to settle into stillness. Feel the rhythm of your breath, the quiet presence of calm, and the knowledge that the wisdom of centuries is with you. The narration is ending soon. Sleep deeply, rest fully, and may you wake refreshed, carrying the gentle lessons of history with you.